Blessing by Imtiaz Dharker. The skin cracks like a pod. There is never enough water. Imagine the drip of it, the small splash, echo in a tin mug, the voice of a kindly God. Sometimes the sudden rush of fortune. The municipal pipe bursts, silver crashes to the ground, and the flow has found a roar of tongues from the huts, a congregation, every man, woman, child for streets around, butts in with pots, brass, copper, aluminium, plastic buckets, frantic hands, and naked children screaming in the liquid sun, their highlights polished to perfection, flashing light as the blessing sings over their small bones. So that is by Imtiaz Dharker, who's a living British poet. She's an ethnic minority woman, so that's why one of the reasons, apart from her poetic aptitude and virtuosity, why the example was very keen on her. So she's ethnically Indian, but writes exclusively in English. Right. So it's part of her 1997 collection of poetry, Postcards from God, and a lot of the locale is in India. So this is about the situation. There's not enough water. Hasn't said exactly where it is. There's a simile right at the beginning because of dehydration and the very arid climate. Skin cracking like a pod. So it's a very striking image. And the plosive sound is repeated, like skin and cracks, because that's similar to this very dry, hostile landscape. So how it's hurting the skin. Perhaps you can almost sense it as you read it. Not enough water, she says. So the stanza's only got 2 lines, and so the sentences are very sparse, just like there's a shortage of water. And then imagine the drip of it, small splash. So that's alliteration, echo, and that literary device there. That is oh my goodness, how come I can't remember it when it sounds like what it describes? Onomatopoeia in a tin mug, the voice of a kindly God. God with a small g, implying perhaps don't believe in him. So we're being called upon to imagine the sound of water is very precious, and there's very, very little of it here in the individual drops. So we are then empathizing with those who suffer from this water shortage. And now they're just having to imagine, to fantasize about water, something most of the readers will take for granted, and will realize what a paucity of water there is. So there's internal rhyme, and tin mug is similar to the sound of a drop of water. So, and it is echoing because this this jug, or this mug rather, it does not have a plenitude of water, is almost empty. And so we see how dire the situation is, and they're having to try and save water. The voice of a kindly God, as though this is some benediction, and water cannot be depended upon. They have to pray for it. So the pipe bursts, and the community is rushing to try and catch some water in buckets or bowls because there's such a shortage of it, using this sibilant phrase, sudden rush, because that's similar to water pouring out. And there's a caesura because of the burst of water from the pipe. So the water is described as silver. That's a metaphor, as that can be like silvery in color, and then it crashes. So this heightens the attention and sense of drama, and the residents, the people there, they view this as a blessing, and it's beatific because they suddenly get water they didn't expect they would. So the people are a congregation, as in a group of religious people. They leave their huts, emphasizing their impecuniosity. So it's an almost sacral happening. So we realize their terrible privation, using commas, leaving out the commas in man, woman, child, because they're all rushing together. And whether you're a child, a woman, or a man, we all need water. All humans, indeed all living things. So the last line of the stanza has only two words: frantic hands, because that's how palpable the sense of urgency is. This is a fight for life. When they're trying to get water, they're just hysterical about it. The stanza length, the length of the lines and the enjambment, they give us this sense of people rushing, like water's rushing for the water. Like people are rushing, they're rushing to catch water as water itself gushes out. The last stanza, we see the children rejoicing because they finally got water. And they're very much at the mercy of water, and they live in dire circumstances. So we see naked children screaming small bones reminds us of their malnutrition and how delicate life is. So she uses this metaphor, liquid sun, and this lumescent language to limn water polished to perfection, because of course it reflects light. So it shows us how beauteous it is, and how essential it is to sustain life. We got this personification, blessing. It sings over the children's small bones. Okay, they are small, they might also be undernourished, and how great this blessing is. So it underscores that there is a paucity of water, and this will save them only for a while. That will too will run out. Um, but they may have been saved due to an accident, the pipe bursting, and actually not through God coming to help us. So that's just a little bit about blessing. What else could I point out? So the deprivation and poverty is one of the themes. There's a religion, hope, and blessings. And yeah, that's it really. So when it comes to the themes, we need to know about this, because in the exam you have to give a personal response, show that you're well informed about the themes, about the ideas and the setting and the events which are described in the poem. So you're considering the main themes anyway. So this poem is based on a really economically deprived area of India back in the 90s. It's not like that anymore. All right. So it's almost a religious event, and they're frantic because you can imagine the frenzy to get water before it all pours out. So it's something holy for them because it's life sustaining, it's very pure, it's cleansing. People wash themselves in Hinduism, the sacred river Ganges, to cleanse their iniquity. Like in the second stanza, water is imagined but is connected to the voice of a kindly God. Shows just how important it is for them. And the third stanza, that's why it's that sudden rush.